Hi, it's Kara and Dave again with Corona Storytime. Today I'm choosing to read from Becoming Wise, an inquiry into the mystery and art of living by Krista Tippett. This is a book that my book group chose to read. I'm pretty sure I didn't vote for it, but we chose to read a few years ago, and it was really above my head, but when I got into it, some of it just really affected me and challenged me deeply. And I even ended up giving it to all of our immediate family members for Christmas because I thought it was such an important book. I'm not sure if anybody read it, but I'm going to read a little bit out of it for you today. And yes, my shirt says, cats are proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. Listening is an everyday social art, but it's an art we have neglected and must learn anew. Listening is more than being quiet while the other person speaks until you can say what you have to say. I like the language Rachel Naomi Remen uses with young doctors to describe what they should practice. Generous listening. Generous listening is powered by curiosity, a virtue we can invite and nurture in ourselves to render it instinctive. It involves a kind of vulnerability, a willingness to be surprised, to let go of assumptions and take in ambiguity. The listener wants to understand the humanity behind the words of the other and patiently summons one's own best self and one's own best words and questions. Generous listening, in fact, yields better questions. It's not true what they taught us in school. There is such a thing as a bad question. In American life, we trade mostly in answers, competing answers, and in questions that corner, incite, or entertain. In journalism, we have a love affair with the tough questions, which is often an assumption masked as an inquiry and looking for a fight. I edited the spiritual background of your life question out of our produced show for years, for fear that it sounded soft, though I knew how it shaped everything that followed. My only measure of the strength of a question now is in the honesty and eloquence it elicits. If I've learned nothing else, I've learned this. A question is a powerful thing, a mighty use of words. Questions elicit answers in their likeness. Answers mirror the questions they rise or fall to meet. So while a simple question can be precisely what's needed to drive to the heart of matter, it's hard to meet a simplistic question with anything but a simplistic answer. It's hard to transcend a combative question, but it's hard to resist a generous question. We all have it in us to formulate questions that invite honesty, dignity, and revelation. There is something redemptive and life-giving about asking a better question. And now I'm gonna go a few more pages and I'm gonna read an interview, part of an interview with Frances Kissling. And she says, so the question she was asked by Krista Tippett is, what do you think you've learned about how social change happens? What would progress look like now in these years ahead? And she said, well, that's a very difficult question. What have I learned? The need to approach others positively and with enthusiasm for difference is absolutely critical to any change. There's no way to change somebody. I'm the toughest of fighters, let's be very clear. My reputation for being devastating in debate is legendary, and I love a good fight and I love to win. But what I have learned is that the simplistic way of putting it is that you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar. That's a very wise saying. And I have learned that people in the center are not going to be the big change makers. You've got to put yourself at the margins and be willing to risk in order to make change. More importantly, you have got to approach differences with this notion that there is good in the other. That's it. And that if we can't figure out how to do that, and if there isn't a crack in the middle where there's some people on both sides who absolutely refuse to see the other as evil, this is going to continue. There's a lot of pressure, and it's much easier to preach to the choir versus listening to people who disagree with you. But the choir is already there. The choir doesn't need us. And then Krista says, the crack in the middle where people on both sides absolutely refuse to see the other as evil. This is where I want to live. and what I want to widen. I hope this gives you a few things to think about. Thank you and take care.